I feel the controversy just trying to butt its way in a way it doesn't normally with podcasts. What is the esoteric significance of furries?
Are furry the Agori of the West?
Yeah, there we go. That's a scary furry.
Jason, you may not know that there is, since the beginning of the internet, been an entire furry religion going on.
So, well, here's another question. Are furries also modern shamans? This is the official the very first video podcast of the Ultraculture Podcast. I've uploaded Zoom calls in the past, but that's not the same. So you and I are appearing side by side with like an animated city background going behind us.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's like looks like a real news show. You can't see it on your end, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You've been on the show before, but tell us about how life has been in wizarding.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Jason, and thanks heaps for having me on again. I've been a long-time fan of your stuff, and I think we have a similar mission as educators.
Yeah.
And people who explore weird phenomena to bring back stories that hopefully people can use. What have I been doing?
Well, that's a good way to put it. I like that. That sounds so normal when you put it like that.
Well, one of my, this is going to piss off some of your students already, but one of my missions, Jason, is to de-spook the occult.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah. And we'll get into that in a second with the whole theme of this discussion. What have I been doing? Well, this year I'm releasing a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, tell us who you are first. Sorry, so tell us about Ari Freeman and who you are.
Ari Freeman, I'm a public wizard in New Zealand. I spent 7 years as the apprentice to the official wizard of New Zealand. I'm now independent. He's sort of taken to Facebook where the angry old man rants, but that's okay. And I am a musician, and I perform public shows and magical performances as a funk wizard, dressed in a psychedelic outfit, and I've headlined festivals doing that. And I'm a writer. I have one book already out called Pragmatic Magical Thinking that is magical theory in the tradition of people like Ramsay Jukes, who's the other guy in my world who's doing magical theory.
Wait, does he live in New Zealand now? I thought he was in South Africa.
No, Ramsay Jukes lives in South Africa, but I've interacted with him a little bit online.
Oh, good.
He's a great guy.
I hope he's doing well.
Yeah, he seems to be okay. And I've got a magical themed album on which I played all the instruments recorded by myself, and I built quite a few of those instruments myself, including this guitar and a bunch of other guitars. So if you like, we could end this with a guitar solo.
Well, then you'll be the first musical guest also of the Ultraculture.
Yeah.
So you'll be making multiple records here.
Awesome. Okay. Well, and then I have 2 more books coming out this year. The first one, my magical themed album is called You Can See Everything If You Look From Nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's coming out at the end of this month on March the 30th, my time. I live in the future, so in a future time zone, so it may come out on the 29th for you guys.
Okay.
Watch for that. I have a book called Tarot for Skeptics coming out with Aeon Books this year. Excellent. It's got a full course on the Marseille, the Rider-Waite-Smith, and the Thoth decks, all taught in parallel.
Whoa.
If you read
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
If you read the first, if you read about the first 40, 50 pages of this book, you'll already be reading tarot and getting results, even if you're a skeptic. Cool. And it answers questions like, what's really going on with psychics and things like that.
What's really going on with psychics?
Yeah. Oh, you want to know?
Yes.
So, I'm what I call a magical pragmatist. Pragmatism is the philosophy started by William James, who's probably your most important philosopher. Pragmatism is also used by science, the philosophy of science, And it's the idea that you should ground truth claims in what you can actually do in the world. So if something produces results, something about it must be true.
I'd say Plato is our most important philosopher, by the way, in the Western esoteric tradition, but Henry James made a good contribution.
William James.
Henry James also made a good fictional contribution.
Henry James was his brother, but I meant William James.
Varieties of spiritual experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
And my point was he's probably the most important American philosopher.
That's also a controversial claim if you put him above Emerson and Thoreau.
I think I would, but
shocking. Shots fired. I'm not sure it would go so far, but interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so you mentioned the varieties of religious experience, which even got name dropped by Crowley. It was part of the AA reading list.
That's right. Interesting.
Yeah. So
I just ordered a copy actually for that reason. Interesting.
Oh, it's great. It's really good. So the idea is, I'll try and put it simply. When you look at someone who's religious, the question shouldn't be whether you can prove, God is real or whether they're really talking to angels, because these are always grounded in subjective experiences. Probably a better question is, can they, with their belief system, get something done that you can't without that belief system?
Interesting. And what was his conclusion?
Yeah, he brought up as many examples as he possibly could on what prayer does and religious experience and transcendental experiences and the Holy Spirit and all of these things. Now, what I'm doing is defending magic on the same principles. It's like if you adopt, and chaos magic already allows you to adopt a belief system for a duration of an experiment. But I argue that sane people believe different things on different days and different things on different parts of days, and that the real problem that causes people real cognitive dissonance is when they try and have one belief system, and you can't get through life with only one belief system.
Yeah.
Or if they try and reconcile belief systems that won't work together, but only because they can't compartmentalize them. So someone who is a really good scientist but goes to a Catholic church and prays to the Holy Spirit on Sunday can probably do that because it's contained within the Sunday service and it doesn't invade his life during the week.
Excellent. And so, for instance, somebody could also be a furry on the weekends and compartmentalize that from the rest of their identities. It could be anyone.
And we'll definitely get into that. Yeah.
Well, let's just go straight to it. Now that I'm in like the Piers Morgan type format, I feel the controversy just trying to butt its way in a way it doesn't normally with podcasts. So this was your idea of something to discuss.
It was my idea.
But I'm going to expand it. So, shocking, controversial topic for today. What is the esoteric significance of furries?
Oh, can I go harder?
Oh, yes.
Are furries the Agori of the West?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're definitely going to do that. But I would say that is a subset of the pure esoteric meaning of furries, because I have other ideas, but let's start with that one. So are furries the Agori of the West?
Okay, give me a moment.
You should explain Agoris too.
Give me a moment to explain this. Firstly, I have a concept which I've heard you talk about, but I've been given a term. And a shout out to Aurora for coming up with this term after I explained the problem to her. It's called inversion without liberation. Inversion without liberation is when you try and rebel against a system you found oppressive, say your parents' religion. But what you do is invert their values so that everything that was bad is now good and vice versa. And many people dedicate their lives, like Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan, or even Crowley himself fell into this trap for a lot of sections of his life. But you're still playing the same game by the same rules set by the oppressor.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so that's the first point. That's the first term, inversion without liberation.
So an example of that would be the one that I usually give is, if you are a Christian and you become a Satanist, well, you're still working out of the same book there. You know, you are you free from
Yeah.
Christianity? No, you've just inverted it, as you said. So I like that phrase, inversion without liberation. Stop before you skip ahead. Today's sponsor is me, because I don't have sponsors, because sponsors won't touch my content with a 10-foot pole. Are you feeling stuck? Why not try Magic and the Occult at magic.me, my school for magic, meditation, and mysticism, as seen on the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, Midnight Gospel, Days Digital, Gaia Online, Netflix, Team Human, Vice, and not yet updated on the site, Tetragrammaton with Rick Rubin. Just check out all the stuff that you can learn. The Magic of Tarot with world-renowned tarot master Lon Milo Duquette. Introduction to Magic with me. Meditation, chaos magic, astrology, meditation, unleashing your true will, and lots more. And of course, we're about to start a brand new course, the Adept Initiative 2, which starts on the 16th. You still have time to join. It's going to be incredible. The Adept Initiative 1 changed people's lives all over the world, revolutionizing not just their ability to master the occult, but to master their finances, to master life, to revolutionize their career, their relationships, everything. It's gonna be phenomenal. Check out what students are saying. They are over the moon, pun intended, with how excited they are about this course. And check it out. You're gonna be learning all kinds of cool stuff, from ceremonial magic to Kabbalah to astral projection. We're talking about the big leagues of personal transformation and consciousness evolution here. You're going to have an incredible time. Meet us in class. It's adept.magic.me. You still have a few more days to sign up, but that's it. All right, back to the show.
From the Western eye looking in, the Agori, firstly, a short summary, and you know more about this than me, so you can correct me, but they are Shavas, and they believe that
Shavites. Yeah.
Shavites, yeah.
Shiva
They believe
worshippers.
that
They
yeah,
don't
that's
shave.
right.
They don't shave. But yes,
Neither do I.
they do worship Shiva.
So the Godhead is perfect and good in Agori belief, and therefore, because creation is created by the Godhead, all creation is good, and therefore it's up to the ascetic to overcome their negative emotions about things they find bad, disgusting, immoral. So, for instance, part of the Agori path, if I am correct, is eating and drinking from human skulls,
Mm-hmm.
painting oneself with cremation ashes, and generally embracing death and hanging around funerals and death pyres. Getting close and personal with excrement and other gross things. Yes. Walking around completely naked in public, potentially.
Not
Yeah.
unique
So
to them, but yeah.
cool. To rebellious Westerners, there's an issue here that maybe misses the point. These people look awfully goth and very cool and rebellious.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is possibly the point of Agori, is that they're rebelling against tenets of their own society. But because we have our cultural clothing or cultural filters, we see them as something cool when they're trying to be the exact opposite. So what is the most uncool thing to Western occultists? I argue it might be furries.
I think you're right. Yeah, somebody pointed out to me, it's like, it's actually very, very hard. I do my best, it's like, it's very, very hard to practice anathema in the chaos magic sense. I found some good hot buttons. For instance, cop consciousness.
Right.
Like, Western occultists can't, I'm really good at that. Like, they just cannot handle it at all. It was really funny. Anything that sounds like it's an opinion their dad might have is always a winner. So I'm fast and furious with the sounds like dad yelling at Fox News opinions, because I know how much it winds people up. But yeah, furries. Somebody pointed out to me once, what can you do in America that is actually what is actually socially unacceptable in America? Because I don't know about New Zealand, but America, parts of it at least, are pretty anything goes. It's very hard to shock people.
Yeah.
So at least in the cities.
So we have a very live and live attitude.
Gotcha. But America also has this, really deep-seated, I don't know what to call it, capitalist impulse. So I think it's like the worst things to be in America are poor, overweight, and mentally ill. And
Right.
all three will make you socially unacceptable. I'm not saying that's a good thing, of course. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that, you know, when you really get down to what is unacceptable to Americans, but furries, yeah, if you just want to go all the way, all at once.
All the way. Okay, so I am not myself a furry, but I have hung out with them, and just to prove that I have, I've captured some of these costumes, and I've used
Oh my God.
I've used furry characters in my
Wait,
musical performances.
show that what I just saw the fur, I didn't see the face.
Oh, this is a rabbit's head.
That's oh God. Wait, here, move it towards him. Move it in front of your face. There we go. Move it a little closer towards the mic. Oh yeah. There we go. Do that
Sorry,
again. This is going in the first 30 seconds of the video now. I can see its nose, but not its eyes. It's quite disturbing.
I wrote some songs that have animal metaphors for psychological types of human being, and the rabbit is someone who always toes the line. He's very scared of confrontation, and so I have a song I wrote called "Rabbit on the Moon," and the rabbit would come out in the crowd while we were playing this song. Cool. Then I have another song with that same band. That band was called Lupus Luna, which means wolf moon, and the other one was a wolf character. These were all made for me. These were made for me by my friend who's a musical furry.
So he is. This was made by a furry.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Here, move it towards the center, so it's like looking into the mic. There we go. Because I can know it's cut off halfway. Yeah. There we go. That's a scary furry. Furries are supposed to be cuddly, aren't they? That looks like a horror movie character.
My furry friends are somewhat more out there and creative with it.
They're dark furries.
Dark furries, I guess. They're not dressing up as cartoon characters.
Okay.
Anyway, so I have been in costume as a wizard out in public with these furry werewolf characters and things around me, and so we've done a lot of what I don't know what you'd call that, public culture jamming, whatever. Yeah, and I've had them appear at my musical performances. So I've spent some time. I am as squeamish as anyone else about fur piles and.
Wait, what is a fur pile? What is a fur pile? I'm not sure I want to assume what that is.
Do you want me to be blunt about it? It's sort of
yes.
How much would you like to dress up as a teddy bear and jack off a man?
Not very much. I have to say, not very much. But that's called a fur pile.
I think to be fair, most of it's just people who like to cuddle, and I pretty much don't.
Right. I understand. I understand. So, well, here's another question. Are furries also modern shamans? Because classic shamanic practice, of course, has you find your totem animal and practice shape-shifting, at least hallucinogenically.
That's right. Jason, you may not know that there is, since the beginning of the internet, been an entire furry religion going on.
Wait, I'm actually, if I don't know about this, I'm actually embarrassed professionally.
It's called Otherkin, and
of course I know Otherkin.
Yeah, and it takes the idea of transgender, but it applies it to trans speciesism. So
this has been huge on Tumblr forever. The Otherkin.
Yeah. So these people believe they have the souls of an animal or everything. An animal or a fox or a mythical creature. So they dudes who have the souls of a dragon or elves. But I did go once on another forum because I'm somewhat of a social anthropologist, and ask, why are you always kind of like cool things? Like, why are you always dragons? And why are there no like fly furries, maggot furries? And one of them said, oh no, I do know an earwig furry. An earwig otherkin, sorry.
Where do you have to get to in your life that you think you're a reincarnated earwig?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But here's the thing about that. I take them seriously because, here's one of the things. The population of the planet has, doubled since the 1960s at least? So if you believe in if you believe in reincarnation, as a lot of religions do, Hinduism, Buddhism, even Judaism believes in reincarnation. If you believe in reincarnation, you got to ask, well, where are all those extra souls coming from?
Okay,
Unless
so
souls are subdividing, presumably it's animals who are graduating into the human kingdom, which would explain the proliferation of fursuiting.
absolutely. Well, I have asked that question to spiritualists who I'm basically like a social anthropologist, so I basically go out and figure out what other people believe. I've always been fascinated by what other people believe. The answer to that one, Jason, is spiritualists who believe in reincarnation, the New Age reincarnation people, don't think that we have consecutive lives exactly. Basically, there's no time on the other side. So therefore, you can just split up your soul into many different ways. So they even say that you might be 3 or 4 people right now.
Oh, so we have a quantity over quantity issue then. People are spreading themselves too thin. Everyone's walking around with like a 16th of a human soul. That would explain a few things too.
Well, no one goes through time once they're dead, according to spiritualists. So all of your lives are happening all at once, even the ones in the Renaissance, and even the ones when you were an earwig.
I see. I don't know. I used to feel this way because it sounds cool, but as time goes on, I've adopted actually much more of a linear perspective on things, just through firsthand experience. But who knows? Who knows, really? But it's like one way or another, even if we're not simultaneously incarnating, that raw soul stuff has got to come from somewhere. I mean, are people incarnating backwards in time from the future, which would suggest that the furries win? It's kind of like Terminator 2 with the Terminators taking over humanity, except it's, the F-1000 furry running towards people at full speed.
I'm not sure if the furries win, but the furries don't give a fuck about being cool, and that is a way out of inversion without liberation.
So do you feel that, have they told you that are they deeply free, or are they just confused?
They seem pretty free when they're running around like teddy bears on the street.
Are they spiritually free? Have they liberated? Or have they? Is becoming a furry the true way out of the Matrix, the Black Iron Prison?
Yeah,
the scheming of the demiurge.
I don't have the answer, but I argue it is one way out of inversion without liberation. And if you're going to be a Western agori, don't be a black metal goth. Go to something that actually grosses you out and learn to be okay with it.
I support this. I'm not sure I want to become a furry, but I am an initiated agori, but over there, so it's just extra goth points for me, But yeah, could I become a furry? This is the type of thing I would have done in college. But now now I'm going to be on YouTube talking about it. This would be a hilarious YouTube project if people it just started, I don't know, compilation of furry wizardry video.
Okay, let's take it further because you suggested and teased out the idea. Are fairies good magicians?
Well, I was saying, are they free? Or excuse me, are they free in the spiritual sense, in the human sense? Have they achieved some type of enlightenment?
I think we've sort of covered that. They were at least escaped the inversion without liberation.
You said they seem free when they're running around, but I'm wondering if if you had any firsthand testimonies from them saying that their life is improved and they've become what they always wanted to be or whatever.
Some of them are pretty interested in magic, at least. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
They seem to have a lot of fun.
Okay.
Way more than the average person.
But are you talking about the fur piles there?
I try not to look at the fur piles
because that could be the thing that's the cherry on top.
Polyamory is a big thing in the furry community. Yeah,
polyamory is a big thing everywhere now. I don't understand it at all, and it's like I put on Twitter last week or something. Like, nobody wants to be in your polycule. Sorry, I didn't. Hopefully, I'm not offending anyone out there. It's just like I it's kind of like the Groucho Marx thing of I wouldn't want to be a club of any. I wouldn't want to belong to any club that would have me as a member. And that goes like times 100 for like that type of thing. Maybe I'm just old now, but yeah.
Well, my bottom line is I don't think human beings should be ever considered to be a smorgasbord. It's a bit gross.
Well, it's succinct and to the point, though.
Mm.
So,
Okay,
so furry magic though, is this like a whole new branch
this
of
is a thing.
magic? Okay, so
So
tell us more.
so I'll give you an example. If people want to know more about this, they can buy my first book, Pragmatic Magical Thinking, which is available on Aeon Books and Amazon, etc. The most interesting, most in-depth, and most detailed example of how to generate a tulpa, which is a theosophic term for a spirit that a magician creates, comes from the Brony community, who are fans of My Little Pony. What is it? My Little Pony.
Friendship is magic.
Friendship is magic.
Are you
Thing,
afraid that I just had that like ready to go, like top of memory?
So they in the depths of this sort of forum, and I found an academic paper on this, Jason. There is by a PhD student, which is all documented in my book. There is a detailed description of how one generates a tulpa as exactly along the lines of a familiar spirit. Cool.
Okay.
So basically,
So this was the whole tulpamancy thing that was happening all over the internet and 4chan and all that. Okay.
Yeah, it was centered apparently around the bronies. So they would spend months and months and months meditating and doing imagery and things until they could have a conversation with a sub-personality. And then they'd go further and imagine using active imagination techniques to imagine that their new friend was sitting beside them or behind them. So they're basically generating an imaginary friend. But they talk about how this can take a year to create this familiar spirit, and how convinced the magician can become that they have split into another personality. Cool. And we have psychological phenomena that are similar, like dissociative identity disorder, but there's this like dissociative identity disorder on purpose. But this is more detail than I have found outside of a Renaissance grimoire, and it came from the bronies.
Have you compared it to like the Tibetan tulpa stuff?
Yeah, but at least what I haven't done is read the Tibetan source material, but I've read a lot of the theosophical stuff. Now, I can tell you this: the term tulpa was created by theosophists from a Tibetan word that is something more like tulkus.
Okay.
So the idea of a tulpa is already a Western sort of fudged term of the original Tibetan technique. And I think it originally was something like, if you become a meditation master in the Tibetan system, you can like astrally project yourself in a way that other people can see you over time and space to turn up and deliver messages and things. But in theosophy, it became, they mashed it together with the concept of the familiar spirit.
Oh, that's really interesting. So that means that concept is basically a theosophical creation.
Tulpa appears to be a theosophical creation of a Tibetan idea, which was something more like tulkus,
which is wild, because it's become, whether you call that, you could also call that making servitors, right, or evocation. That's technique is everywhere. It's one I actually don't recommend people do, because you're splitting parts of yourself off, which I find that in practice is not worth it. But that said, it's wild that just by essentially mashing up, whether intentionally or not, the idea of the familiar and this tulkus, that they created an occult technique. I mean, that kind of says a lot.
There are outside of the Brony example, there are people on the internet, on YouTube, who are demonstrating that they can at least perform as if they are two different personalities. Like, and there's a dude who went on You Thinking Aloud, who's, is it a dude? I don't know. A transgender person on You Thinking Aloud who's got a complete female persona and a complete male one, and can even do a duet singing on the guitar, and it's very weird.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, that's very shamanic as well.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, this
So,
is so. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say some of the strangest and most present examples of magic will come from the cringy places of the internet, I tell you.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was just gonna riff on, where I was thinking as you were saying that it's funny how we have there's like this academic magic world where people are reading Crowley and writing papers and all of that and writing books, and it's the occult publishing, and then there's and almost all of that is studying the past, right? It's studying folk magic or things that emerged in a grassroots, or perhaps a more grassroots way in the past. But at the same time, magic is an emergent phenomenon that is occurring everywhere all the time. And so at the same time, it's also just happening, it seems, organically in basically the least socially acceptable places on the internet. There was also the whole there were also the 4chan Nazis and Keck and all of that.
Absolutely,
where it's like all these fringe groups discovered magic, and
I suspect these people have actually read chaos books.
Okay, at least chaos magic, right? Okay, but they're not on. They're not like academically studied. It seems like, because I know that when the Keck thing happened, it was because people had found one book on magic on Scribd about how to make memes, and the whole thing was based off of one book that was distributed as a PDF. So
this gets really weird, and this is beyond anything I can make truth claims about, but the 4chan community got very excited when they found out, because like they were into Dugan, Alexander Dugan, and Alexander Dugan is into chaos magic and the idea of the spectacle and the idea of
that's a can of worms right there. That's a big can of worms, because it's a yes, and it's his own weird twisted version of it.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. So and by the way, this is just here, guys. If you want to try it, I'm not endorsing any of this stuff.
Oh no, yeah. I'm just saying that because Dugan appropriated the Chaos Star, and he seems to have incorporated some chaos magic ideas, but it's really Duganism. It's like I feel like his ideology, the fourth political theory ideology, probably only really makes sense if you're Russian, I think, because it's all about geography and a multipolar world and allying with China and a transcending political ideology and all this stuff. It's very much about the Russian, and it's also very much about the Russian attitude esoterically towards America, because he straight up says that there are good angels which run Eurasia and bad angels that run the West, and that they're in open war. Yeah. So anyways, interesting side tangent.
Again, it's a rebellion. It's a this kind of makes sense. I think he's looking at the West and trying to figure out how to rebel, but you're still using the formulation of the West.
Oh, that's
and so the ones, I've seen one interview with him, and he was very, very shifty on what his personal involvement with Putin actually is.
I've heard people saying that it's actually not that much, and that the Western media has kind of exaggerated it because he's such a colorful character, and he actually doesn't really have that much pull with Putin. That may be a Western perception. So he may be cagey about that because he doesn't actually have any. But that said, he was.
That's what came across. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That said, he's enough of a player and a target that I'm sure you saw his daughter was assassinated at the beginning of the Ukraine war, with a car bomb.
That's right.
That I think I'm not sure. I think it was actually meant for her, not him. But that was pretty targeted.
Yeah, that's dark.
I mean, you wouldn't wish that on anyone, even somebody like that.
So further on the inversion without liberation idea, if this is an idea you think is useful to your listeners.
Yes, I think so.
I have a joke as to why the Hindus appear to be immune to the Christian missionaries.
Okay.
So a Christian missionary walks into a Hindu temple and he says, this is Jesus Christ. He is God incarnate, and you should worship him as the one true God. And the Hindu goes, yes, of course, we'll put him right next to Ganesh here. We love gods here. We've got so many gods. We'll put Jesus right here. And the Christian goes, oh, no, I'm sorry, you're misunderstanding me. He's the one and only God. You're only allowed to worship this one God. Jesus is his human incarnate form. And the Hindu goes, yes, of course, all gods come from Brahman, the one unified source. And Jesus is one of his millions of avatars. So we'll put him right next to Ganesh. And the Christian goes, no, you're only allowed to worship Jesus. And the Hindu goes, yes, all worship of gods is ultimately pointing towards the one Godhead, Brahman. And basically, they can incorporate Jesus, which is the escape route from aversion while liberation, and have created a rule system where they can never be annexed. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And I think that was done intentionally. And it's like, it's been said, I think this is true. Also, there are more religions in India than in the rest of the world combined. And, the idea of Hinduism itself even is a Western construction where it means, Hindustan is the actual name of India. So it's this idea of Hindustan ideology, but that's a blanket that covers hundreds, if not thousands, of religious groups that we don't really have a sense of as much in the West, in the same way that we don't have a sense that there are over 50 ethnic groups in China, right? It's just like, we don't get that. So,
including some non-Asian ones.
Yeah. Right. And, which is wild, yeah. But I lost my train of thought. Hinduism, right. So the Indian way has always been to embrace other religions, and it's theological. It's actually theologically coherent, right, in a way that Christianity isn't. It makes sense and is satisfying mathematically, the way that you just described it. Of everything's pointing to the one. That's how they see it. It's like that actually makes sense. Why would one individual born in the Middle East be special? Of course, there's a counter argument to that I'm sure. The counter argument is, well, those are all pagan gods, and there only ever was one incarnation, and then that would be the Catholic argument. But
okay, so here's my challenge to that, though. I argue there is actually no difference between polytheism and monotheism.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah. Basically, the problem is in the English language, and possibly, I speak German as well, so it's a problem in German. So it's possibly through European languages. We have this problem with the word God, and basically we use the God for too many things, and it's a loose term. So I argue that the place that the spiritual type of entity that used to be, for instance, say Jupiter or Mars or Thor, is now taken, for instance, in Catholic theology by angels and saints. What that is, you pray to an angel and saint for the same reason, same types of reasons you'd pray to, say, Thor. You want nicer weather, so you pray to a saint. So as a spiritual archetype construct or concept or literal being, a saint or an angel is actually a god. It's just when we're talking about paganism, we call them gods, and when we're talking about Catholicism, we have these other categories.
Well,
given that Catholics are polytheists, now I have met Catholics who admit to that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, I think you're correct, clearly, and this is a big part. This was a big point of contention during the Protestant Reformation, where Protestants, consider Catholics to be pagan, because they're saying, what are all these saints? This is completely missing the point. This is paganism. This is idol worship. This is downplaying the role of the intercessor, and what is with Mary. And it seems like so they openly call Catholics pagans or polytheists. So I'm not arguing for either one of these positions. Well, I am saying that I'm not arguing whether it's good or bad, but I do think that Catholicism is clearly pagan and polytheist, as is Orthodoxy.
Yeah. So that hopefully that's my argument for why Christianity is polytheistic.
Okay.
However, the reverse is also true. All of the Eurasian mythologies, and I mean this, Chinese mythology, Japanese mythology, all of the European ones, Norse mythology, Greek mythology, but also all the cultures that evolved from Asian mythologies, the Native American Indians, the Polynesians and Austronesians, and I come from New Zealand and have Maori family members, so the Maori mythology is important to me, and I've had experiences with those gods too.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those say that there is a universal Godhead that is undifferentiated through an act of creativity. It produces the world, and it starts with a splitting act, which is the logos, which causes difference, and only with difference can you have our perceptual world. So I can only know your view because I know you're not me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an illusion. Now, that appears to be a mythological story saying everything comes from a universal Godhead that we have been telling perhaps for 40,000 years. So like basically more than half of the world's mythologies have that in there. And you find it over and over and over again. And if you guys want the academia on this, the book, which is astounding, is called The Origins of the World's Mythologies by Michael Witzel, who was the Harvard professor of Sanskrit. And it's just an incredible academic bomb, like with screeds of evidence for why mythology is a 40,000-year-old story, and it rather it's the answer to and rather undoes the idea of Jungian archetype theory generating mythology. He says no, they're just really old stories.
So his argument is that I'm unclear on his argument. It's something like they're only stories, they're not neurologically based, or what?
He's got evidence for because if all those cultures have the same story, the question is when was the last time that these people were all one culture, and it was 40,000 years ago. That's the last time.
Oh, really? So he says that it was all one. It was one united culture.
He makes the case that we're still telling stories that are 40,000 years old.
Wild.
And there's nearly 200 pages of references in this book. This guy knows his enemies, It's, even if you disagree with it, it's one of the most beautifully written academic cases. And he waited till the absolute end of his career before he put this out, which was around 2012. He's still around.
It's that controversial?
Yeah. It's just one of those things that I believe will become the golden bough of our new age, but no academic wants to touch it because they can't argue against it.
What is the current, do you know what the current consensus is otherwise? Are people working off the idea that they're still working off a Jungian idea?
So the Jungian idea is the reason that we tell, and Joseph Campbell took this line and had a lot of evidence for it, but is the idea that we tell the same kinds of mythologies over and over again, and our religions look quite similar because humans have inbuilt and culturally inbuilt archetypes. So everyone has supposedly everyone has a mother and a father, and therefore there's always father and mother archetypes. There are problems with this. There are cultures that don't have any fathers. And like people are already going, what the hell are you talking about, Ari? No, there are cultures that only have uncles, where the children belong to the mother. Nobody keeps track of who the daddy is, and that children remain in the sister's house where the women have all the property, and that the children are raised by the mother's brothers, so that the fathers never raise their own kids and no one cares about who fathers are. So like something as fundamental as fatherhood is not anthropologically universal.
And cool. do those same cultures that are fatherless tell father mythology? Like, are they still telling the same mythology as everyone else, or is it significantly different?
Well, I would suspect not.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so Witzel just asked the question, well, could these stories just be really old? And it could be the mainstream of influence actually be that we're still telling really old stories that go back to before the current races that we have on Earth were on, when we had common ancestry. And he comes up with a solid case for a 40,000 years. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. Um, so I live in the southern hemisphere. So Australia is close by, and we're pretty damn sure that the Australian Aborigines have been there for 65,000 years now. That's like the short end of the story.
That's got to be the oldest culture on Earth at this point, though, right? Is there any culture with continuity going back that far?
There's no culture that is as isolated while having continuity as them.
Wild.
So obviously African culture is older, but it's so intermixed.
Okay.
By the way, 65,000 years is the short end of the story. The wider hypothesis puts it 80,000 years.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And that's changed really fast because in the 80s, people thought they'd been there for maybe 40,000 years. So things are changing fast. I'll give you another quick fact. In 2000, either 2013, something like that, they found some bones in Morocco that are Homo sapiens, and they're 300,000 years old or older. And so that doubled the human story, because before then, when we were like kids in primary school, because we're roughly the same age, they told us that Homo sapiens have been around for 150,000 years. So like there's incredible changes in anthropology and human history going on now. It's changing really fast.
That's something that's always really fascinated me, that the past is always changing also. It still blows my mind, for instance, that we didn't really, first of all, we didn't know hardly anything about ancient Egypt until the end of the 19th century. And we didn't even know that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't even, as far as I know, we didn't even know anything. We didn't even know that Sumeria existed.
That's right.
Until around that period also. So we may have known about Egypt earlier, but things were being just excavated at that time, and hence the massive public fascination.
But no, now we've always said the items from Egypt, but the thing you're reaching for is that hieroglyphs were deciphered in the 1820s.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. So these huge advances overturn everything that we knew previously. And they're continuing to happen all the time, like the ones that you just described. I see these things go by, and then it like goes by in Google News feed, and it strikes my interest for half a second. But although we have so much information now, it's very hard to correlate it or remember. And so when you look back at the things that have just happened in the last 10 years of that magnitude, it's probably endless.
So just this week, we've had a major news story in New Zealand from the Chatham Islands, which is a New Zealand territory. They have found an ocean-going waka buried in a beach. A waka is a Maori name for a vessel, so it includes boats and ships and canoes. And the ones that we've got have all been like large trees that were dug out, like. So a lot of the canoes were like carved from a single tree, but this one has at least 450 pieces, and then they're about to start trying to put it together, and which means I suspect it's really huge. And I've been the Polynesians and Austronesians were the best navigators on Earth. They got to South America. They got the kumara, which is not only a Peruvian vegetable, but it's also a Peruvian word, and it's sweet potato. But in Maori, a kumara is what we call a sweet potato, and the word for that vegetable in Peru is kumara. They also have genetic evidence, so it's true.
That's wild.
And they got there.
And do you know when? Do you know when they got there? It was before the Europeans.
Way before the Europeans, but we're not sure. It's probably about 1000 AD or something.
Wow.
But we don't have written records, so it's genetic evidence, horticultural evidence. But there's Peruvian indigenous bloodlines and like the people from Rapa Nui who are very, very closely related to Maori. Rapa Nui is Easter Island.
Yeah, I mean, what I guess this is all getting revealed by modern genetic testing.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and we're still just beginning to understand that. You know, I remember
they navigated, by the way, without the concept of longitude. So the Westerners required special clocks that work on rocky waves, special clockwork, like high level clockwork, developed in the I think the end of the 15th century. The Maori and Polynesians did it without any clockwork at all. They didn't have clockwork, so they did it through. I argue they did it through magical thinking. Like they had a and what is part of what magical thinking is using the right side of your brain to solve problems instead of the left. So it's going to come in terms of spirits because the right side of the brain attributes personhood to objects and pets and microphones and things. And it's going to come in terms of relationships, and it's going to come in terms of story. But what the right side of your brain doesn't do is talk. So if you're a culture with philosophy that's always written down, you're a left brain culture. So when we look at these cultures that solved incredible problems, and this is what my first book, Pragmatic Magical Thinking, is about, we look at them and go, well, they don't really explain themselves, and they don't have philosophy, and they don't have books. But if you look at their technology, and by the way, technology is separate from science, some of the technology and some of the things these people could do were sometimes better than the Europeans of the same time.
I'm super interested in Maori magic and cosmology and gods, and I'd love to know more about that because I know hardly anything about it, if anything.
Well, it maps so closely to all of these mythologies because that say at the top there is a universal godhead. So in the beginning, there is a state called the nothing, which is called te kore. This is the same story as you find in the Greek system, where it is called the night, and it's called chaos. It's Brahman. Do you know what I mean? So this is what Michael Witzel in The Origin of the World's Mythologies thesis, that these stories are really old because there's this common mythology. Now, the way he builds it is like, okay, so if these are old stories rather than archetypical framework of our brains and bodies and things that produce the same stories over the time, then there should be exceptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
There should be cultures that don't have this, and then we know that and there are cultures that don't do it.
That's kind of what I was fishing for a little bit earlier. Yeah.
Okay, so there's the Southern Africans, the Australian Aborigines, the Andaman Islanders, which are where those Sentinelese, those people who don't like people turning up on their island, come from, and those cultures have a completely different structure to their mythology. So, for instance, none of those cultures talk about the beginning of the world. They just don't care. They talk about the beginning of human beings, but the world's either always been here, or at a certain point it was just a timeless mishmash out of which everything comes, and you go back to that timeless place when you dream and things like that, which is the Aboriginal dream time.
So,
cool. So there are, just like there's cultures that don't have fathers, there's cultures that don't have the creation myth.
So it's just a non-starter, but it's assumed that humans started at some point into an eternal world.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Or it's almost a world without time. Do you know what I mean? Like the world has always sort of existed. It's like the imaginal, like Henri Corbin. It's like there's a state that is that's just always there that you can visit magically.
Yeah, I mean, time is so clearly a complete modern construction, and we hear from cultures, certainly pre-electricity cultures, pre-electrical lighting cultures all over the world, that life is much more timeless and is lived
Absolutely,
almost
yeah.
as a timeless dream.
Well, children go through time differently than adults. And some of my magical experiments, for a long time, I ended up going through time really differently than all my friends, and it was really disconcerting.
How
It
so?
was like, uh, all of my, because I'm 43, like all of my friends
Oh, we're
were
the same
going,
age. Yeah.
yeah, with so much. All of my friends were saying, "Oh man, time goes by so fast," and I was like, "Time crawls." It's like every day. I came to the conclusion by comparing stories with my friends that I was going through time like 4 times slower than the people around me.
That's a good thing.
I guess so.
Yeah, well then you'll die you'll die 4 times less quickly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So I guess I think you can use magic to or magical experience to change your the way you experience time.
Yeah, I thought since my teens actually that magic in a lot of ways comes down to a matter of time manipulation and of binding time, which is, you know, the thing that distinguishes human beings from the rest of the animal kingdom or the mammal kingdom outside of opposable thumbs is our ability to bind time and to work in the dimension of time, for instance, by writing things down or
Mm.
making a promise to oneself that is resolved in the future, or that something is memorialized like a statue. That is
Yeah.
completely unique to us, it seems, as far as we know. And I think that a lot of magic comes down to working with that ability in various ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing you find in the Western magic tradition is one of the ways you know these people were tapped in is that they appear to get way more done in a human lifetime than seems reasonable.
Yes. What do you think
Cool.
that
And
trick
like,
what do you think that trick consists of?
um, I think there's a lot of things that people claim about Western occultism and Western magic tradition that aren't true. But I think one of the things that is true is it focuses, it strips your life of of the things that you don't want to do by
Yeah.
focusing on the will, and it it doesn't get talked about enough. It's really magic is a form of creativity. Like it's really an exercise in trying to push creativity as far as it will go.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really exciting when you put it like that too. Suddenly it's less scary. It's not
Yeah.
scary. Now it's really seems like very, very exciting. That's what one of the things that drew me to it, that idea of kind of a master art that subsumed all other arts that would allow me to explore, because was interested in writing, but I was also an artist, and I was interested in digital computers and the web as it was coming in. And I had all these interests, and I wanted to find something to do with my life where I could put all of those creative impulses into it.
Yeah.
And then I'd found magic, which is, I think, called a great work for a reason. And still to this day, I mean, everything I do basically myself, and I've had to learn how to be like 70 different people.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's a common experience. That's not just me. I think that's a common type of experience.
Well, I played about 8 or 9 instruments on my album that's coming out at the end of the month,
Nice.
and it's a 100% one person project from start to finish. So one of my missions is to, by examples, show people um, to really understand a person. You can't just use your modern ideas of how things work or your own cultural things of how things work and just project onto them. So the whole world of magic became way more exciting to me when I learned by reading about alchemy and stuff that our ancestors believed that the world of concepts was the spirit realm, or at least the spirit realm contains the worlds of concepts, like they overlap. So when they say, when they talk about spirits, you got to understand that to an alchemist or an indigenous person, and there's examples where people are going to come up with examples where this isn't true, but often the case. The number one is a spirit. The number two is a spirit. Number two is trying to get different things done in the world that's different to number one. Songs are spirits. They're little packets that contain willpower by the person who created them. And you get songs stuck in your head, and that's a spell. And by the way, there's no sound causing that. So like music isn't even sound. But so it's like the alchemists believe that one of the ways that the Godhead produced the world was through maths and through ratios and things that were akin to musical harmony.
Yes, Pythagoras believed that also.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, he's the one who came up with the idea that we should have 12 notes in music. So he's the father of music theory.
That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah, it all
So
goes back to that.
when you realize, when the world of concepts is the spirit realm, then suddenly you realize that they're talking about maths and music, and they're talking about things that are way more relevant to our modern world when they're talking about spirits than we realize. And it's just sort of starting with Descartes and the Enlightenment mission. We sort of created a line in history where we stopped trying to understand our ancestors, and I'm trying to help heal that gap.
So ironic, because Descartes aspired to be a member of the Invisible Rosicrucian Brotherhood in his youth, and wrote a letter to them, as is the ancient tried and true tradition, and ended up becoming Descartes and torturing a bunch of animals. He was a real...
Oh, really?
He was, apparently he was a real bastard to, it's kind of like...
Was that for science?
Let's take apart a dog to see if there's a soul in it, like that type of thing.
Have you read Ian McGilchrist's The Master and His Emissary about brain lateralization and culture?
No, I don't know about that.
It's such a good book for magical theory. So dissecting things is such a left brain activity, and talking to spirits is a right brain activity. So part of the reason our culture makes this magic division where some things are magic and some things aren't, and like some things are spooky and some things aren't, is because we've forgotten how to describe the world in terms of the right side of our brain. And the right side of the brain sees people, where a tree is a person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that seems to be completely hardwired.
So my argument is there's real problem solving that actually helps you survive to be had with that side of your brain. And it's very easy to point out, because Emma Gilchrist builds the case that your entire perceptual system goes through the right side of your brain first. So you can't actually perceive very much at all with only a left side.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. So the right side is dominant, which is why he titled it The Master and His Emissary. The left side thinks it's in control, but the right side is always the one presenting the world to the left side.
Does that suggest that pretty much everyone is in a state of magical thinking all the time, even people who think they're being hyper-rational?
So our first interaction, Jason, we had a debate.
Yeah, that was
about
fun.
Whether magic is
real. That was fun. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I said to you is, Jason, the question is not whether we can have magical thinking and rational thinking. It's magical thinking all the way down. You can have better magical thinking and worse magical thinking.
And that's right.
That's all you can have. Even science has faith-based constructs built into it.
Would it be fair to put that in another way as is it a scale of magical thinking, or is it a scale of precision in understanding cause and effect? Whereas the more you understand cause and effect at a more and more fine-tuned, precise level, the more that approaches science, modern science, whereas more primitive understandings of cause and effect might be more akin to what we look down on as magical thinking.
So again, the right side of the brain, which is the one more prone to magical thinking, although there are left side of the brain types of magical thinking too, but the right side's more prone to what Western culture would deem magical thinking, tends to see the larger picture. So it's a gestalt situation, whereas the left side of the brain likes details. So the choice is this. You can be talking about more stuff in terms of cause and effect in an imprecise way, or you can be talking about a smaller amount of stuff in a more precise way. And the more precise you want to be, the less of the world you're encompassing.
That's interesting also because as a general hypnotic principle, using vaguer and vaguer and vaguer language tends to induce trance in people, whereas using more and more and more and more precise language, as basically as you're just saying, brings them out of a trance-like state of consciousness and into a different trance, the trance more of ordinary daily reality.
No, that's really interesting, yeah.
Which would kind of go along with what you're saying a bit.
Yeah. So a scientist who's properly trained doesn't talk in terms of facts at all while they're being a scientist. So we've got this, we have some really bad ideas about what science is for people who are not trained in science. Science is not about facts at all. Science is about predictions. So you have a set of data and you try and predict the way the world will go by looking at the tests and the data and the meta-analysis of that data. So scientists, like for instance, when they had the Higgs boson experiment in the Large Hadron Collider, some journalists asked the scientist, so is the Higgs boson real? And the scientist would go, well, with, 99.9999, whatever it is, 0.6 chance that it's real. And they go, no, tell us, yes or no, is it real? It's like, no, I'm a scientist. It's 99.99996 probability that it's real. And that's how you talk if you're being a scientist. It's not about facts. And it's about making predictions. Do you know what I mean?
And following a process of following the scientific method.
Yeah, everyone who's ever been a scientist, ever, is filtering that science through a human perception system. So it's a bit like placebo effect in drug testing. The placebo effect is not there because it's a convenient baseline to measure anything. It's super inconvenient. It's all kinds of factors that come in that have nothing to do with the chemistry. If we could get rid of it, it'd be great. The placebo effect's there because you can't get rid of the placebo effect in a conscious patient. And by the way, placebo effect includes the color of the walls of a hospital, what the doctor's wearing, how they're talking to you, whether they have their degree on the wall or not. The size of the pill, the name of the pill.
Right.
Which is magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the magic never fully escapes, even in science. The perceptual system, you're never completely certain.
Well, you definitely see it. You definitely see it in mass consciousness, where, for instance, with the political polarization in the world, I don't know how it is there, but certainly in the U.S., people have a completely talismanic relationship to language at this point, where if they hear, they're no longer interested in ideas or thinking through things. If they hear something that in their mind sounds like a talking point that the other side would have, it's just a talismanic thing. It's like, oh, you're part of that tribe. It's being used as a tribal marker, right? And that's like all it is. You know what I mean?
So Lionel Snell, who writes under the name Ramsey Jukes, and you interviewed him at one point.
He talks about total legend.
He talks about how a lot of people who think they're being rational are actually using banishing magical thinking. But I would put it, a lot of the political stuff going on now, which is happening in most countries, including New Zealand, can be looked at by transference and projection and psychology, those two terms. So what happens is people read something and it proposes that this type of person should be their enemy, and then they do what I call shadow boxing, where they pretend to have an argument in their head as if someone's an enemy. And then instead of having, like we're trying to have here, a human to human conversation, they'll go, well, you're a woke this or a mega that. And so therefore your position is this. And this is my attack.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly it.
Project. And so I have a wizard technique to overcome this.
Okay. That sounds useful.
Which is, you have to get a little pissed off with them and go, I'm sorry, I'm here and I am a human being. And what you've done is put a costume of an enemy in front of me and you want me to wear it and I refuse. So if you want to know what I think, you can ask me what I think, and you won't know what I think until you ask me, because I guarantee I will surprise you with what my actual positions actually are. And I have made friends with fundamentalists, with the atheists who argue fundamentalists, with MAGA people.
So you find that opens up the conversation if you do that. Okay, wow, okay.
And they start going, oh, okay. And like very few people, when you point out that you're being, they're dehumanizing you, and you insist on being talked to like a human being, they almost always turn around and have to talk to you like a human being. Like, I'll tell you an example. I went along to a theosophy meeting because I like checking out what people do. So like they invited me along, and then there were some people turned up and they're like, oh, do you want to come to a party on the weekend? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I went along to their party, and when I turned up to their party, only then was I told that these were COVID conspiracy people celebrating the first anniversary of their lockdown protests.
Okay.
Cool. And so at that point, I could have just gone home. I was like, no, I'll stay and talk to these people. Yeah, and so like these people, because like conspiracy people tend to treat conspiracy as a collection, so it's never one conspiracy.
Oh yeah, it's always it's conspirituality. It's very complex, homemade religion.
So they all agreed about that COVID was a hoax or a government manipulation of the population or various things. But everyone else had their own like kind of fascinating things. So one guy started talking to him, and he's like started rabbiting on and on and on about Jewish banking and how the Jews are controlling the world and everything. And so I just looked at him straight in the eye and I was like, you know what? Just consider me part of the Jewish conspiracy. He said, what do you mean? It's like, I have Jewish ancestors. Just consider that when you look at me, just go, oh, I am actually talking to one of them. I'm talking to the Jewish conspiracy.
What did he say?
We had a really nice human conversation for the next 2 hours because he stopped projecting bullshit onto me.
That's quite a trick. I feel like this is a really subtle trick, because depending on who you are, if you don't have quite as some of us don't have quite as direct, smooth of a control of vocal tonality. Sometimes I feel like these could end up in violence if they were misunderstood.
Yeah, amazing, eh? Like he could have kicked me out of the party. He could have done, but he ended up we had a really nice human conversation.
That's really funny.
Like, what do you think about this one? And he stopped dehumanizing me when I told him I was part of the Jewish conspiracy. So it's really just projection there, Jason. It's projection. And if you can get people to stop projecting onto you, and you just got to stand your ground and say, I'm not putting on that costume. I'm not going to let you. I'm a human being.
It would be very healthy worldwide for people to learn how to do that type of thing.
It's worked for me over and over. Yeah, Ari, you can't walk up to a whole protesting gang that's holding sticks and do this. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you have a one-on-one interaction with another human being, you can get away with this. Well, I've gotten away with it over and over and over for like years. Like I've been practicing this for I don't know, 15 years.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. So when you first started doing it 15 years ago, did it always go smoothly, or did you have some interesting experiences?
Yeah, it just seems to work. It just
right
seems
away,
to work.
it worked right out of the box.
To put this in perspective, it's not just someone sometimes. I was walking for over 7 years, I was walking around in a wizard costume in public doing street philosophy and having people walk up to me and then going on about whatever was on their mind. So people were projecting, nice things like Harry Potter or weird things like, oh, you're some sort of occult witch. I mean, like all day, every day. And I think I was having 100 photos taken of me a week in some points. I was certainly meeting hundreds of people every week, hundreds of new people. And I was also having my image put on all over social media.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. One pretty funny and weird wizard story is for like a couple of weeks I tried out a dating app and finally, like, if I'm at a party, I can generally like charm people into conversations pretty damn easily. But yeah, I wasn't getting any bites. But I was like, because I'm a big hairy dude, and these dating apps are for sporty people, or look at me in the mountains, or
no.
look at they're not for unusual people.
Were you on in your full wizard regalia?
No.
Okay.
But
okay.
I found two photos, Jason, of people who'd seen me out on the street and taken a photo next to me with their arm around a wizard in full wizard costume as their profile pic on dating apps.
Wow.
So,
wow.
So a wizard next to you apparently is a good luck charm to get dates.
You should get Cameo or something like that. Start charging.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's pretty funny. Well, we've covered a lot. Let's see. We've been going for a couple hours. I think we've gotten to the bottom.
If people like my ideas, I have just sort of about a month ago started a Substack. And if you search for Ari Freeman Wizard, that's Ari Freeman, Freeman Wizard. Maybe you can put the link up. And a lot of the things I talked about today are there. So got articles, like Conversion Without Liberation is an article, one called Meaning Engines. Inversion Without Liberation has the stuff about furries being the Agori of the West in there. Yeah, so and I'm trying to put up sometimes quite humorous, sometimes but hopefully deep bits of magical philosophy up there.
Okay. And you promised us a song, of course.
Oh, I thought I'd finish by doing a guitar solo.
Yes, please.
I'm gonna click original sound for musicians. Oh, there we go. Here we go.
Very good. That was awesome. All right. Well, it was wonderful having you back on the show, and thank you for being the very first TV style guest. I don't know what to call this, but YouTube guest.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Imagine if every one of our viewers chipped in just a little. We could take Magic.me to incredible heights. The truth is, because this is an occult channel, YouTube doesn't monetize a whole lot of our videos. But if many of you join as members, your collective support will make up for that and then some. That means more content, more often, and the ability to explore even bolder topics without worrying about ad restrictions. There's strength in numbers. Each new member adds up to make a massive force powering this channel's mission. Long term, that means a rich archive of magical knowledge for all of us. So let's make it happen. Click join and become part of the movement, because together we can grow Magic.me to incredible heights and bring esoteric knowledge to the world.